Welcome back to the class, everyone. 2023 is officially coming to a close, and overall it feels like a pretty good year, but it would feel a little bit empty if we didn't take some time to go back and reflect. So that's really what we're going to do today. We're going to go through every single character that we got in the year of 2023 and just list their purpose and how important, or most important to least important, they really were as far as the game goes in general. This isn't exactly a power ranking, otherwise Galactic Legend Leia herself would be up here at the top, but more so this is just where I felt like they actually really came in and helped out and did quite a bit. So let's go ahead and get into the best ones. This is Zor Bliss, Captain Rex, and Merrin. These are my favorite type of characters, and for really two reasons. Number one, they're just good. Rex came in and he helped out Phoenix a lot, helps them punch up, has a really busted kit when it comes to being able to be immune to very specific things like ability block and daze. Some of the abilities out there that really plague a lot of the factions. On top of that, he's got a lot of recovery. He's got passive turn meter. Overall, just a really good character. Zori, I won't read her 8-paragraph unique, but it is very good and relevantly changes the Finn team, as well as Merrin breathing a lot of life back into the Night Sisters with, once again, more revive and stun mechanics. Overall, they're good, but the thing that makes me the most happy, what I enjoy the most about them, is they took kits that I already knew and they just added one more puzzle piece, so they were easy to understand. My quality of life using them as characters, whether it be offensively or defensively, just went up because I didn't have to learn 5 new kits to really understand what was going on with them. While I like the Inquisitor squad, it is very good. It does a lot of fantastic things on both offense and defense, even up against GLs. One of the more challenging parts of it, and they didn't come out this year, but one of the more challenging parts of the Inquisitors is the fact that you have to essentially learn 5 or 6 different kits to even understand what they're doing. And I'll be honest, to this day, I really don't know what all of them do, just because it was so much to take in at one time. The above 3 characters really don't have that problem at all. They came in and they're already leveraging a ton of information that I've learned in years past, and all I have to do is add them to the puzzle. When I looked at Rex's unique abilities, seeing all these stats and whatnot, my first thought was, oh, Hera, the character I've known for years now, has a leadership that is going to allow them to share their uniques, and he's instantly going to be good. When I looked at Merrin and saw that she gave out Plague for 2 stacks for 3 turns, I immediately already tied it to everything that I've learned about Mother Talzin and years past. Revives with Daka. Overall, just how her kit works in with the Night Sisters. Zori, again, while Finn Poe wasn't exactly the strongest team out there, it's one we've already used and we've had to be aware about us. Even back when Finn had his old Zeta and he had a different type of leadership, I already had to learn what his kit did, and I just plugged this extra character into that team and they are all good and ready to go. So yes, they are good characters. They're not the strongest ones out there in the world, but at the same time, they're leveraging a ton of knowledge that I've already had to work for, and it just kind of makes you feel good. And honestly, from a laziness perspective, it's really nice because then you don't have to learn 5 whole kits. Next up is going to be Leia and Drogo. These characters are pretty much exactly as expected, and while this might appear as a negative thing to say, oh, you did exactly what you were supposed to do, I do think this can be a little bit challenging to make a Galactic Legend in the very complex Galaxy of Heroes game right now, so that they feel like a Galactic Legend where they're not too weak and they're not too strong. I think Leia and Drogo actually hit the mark just about perfectly. They do feel a little bit overpowered, particularly on defense right now, because of Drogon's Datacron and the Rebel damage reduction cron, but ultimately they seem to just be doing great all over the place. JML and JMK, when they don't have the Datacron, can beat them quite easily, but they have a leg up on a lot of the other Galactic Legends and really just fit into that mold perfectly. I do enjoy how Drogon was kind of outfitted to also work in other comps, such as Mon Mothma or Saw. Particularly, that was really nice when he had his Datacron. I myself didn't have Leia unlocked at the time, which meant that I could use Drogon, his busted Datacron with Mon Mothma, and get somewhat good results there. Not as good as having Leia, sure, but I wasn't completely out of luck just because I didn't have the Galactic Legend, which in years past, that has actually been a major problem. When a new Datacron comes out, it goes to a Galactic Legend that you don't have, you're kind of just hosed. but instead they decided to put it on one of the support characters that is more accessible than the Galactic Legend, and that helped me personally out. So not necessarily amazing value overall, but still the strongest character we've gotten this year, really the strongest duo we've gotten this year. Next up is going to be Kestis and Calus Beck. Definitely not, they're not meant to be used together. You would use Calus Beck in a Qui-Gon team or under his own leadership, and then Jedi Knight Cal Kestis in basically any other Jedi team that exists. JML, Jedi Knight Luke, and Jedi Knight Revan are a good start. I guess Bastila isn't bad either. And I think CG just absolutely nailed balance when it comes to these characters. They are far from useless. You definitely want to have them geared. You definitely want to use them. But at the same time, they don't just take the teams they're put on and put them at some unrealistic power level. JML with Cal Kestis on defense still doesn't really hold to that much more than he did before, but now when you stick him on the team versus Lord Vader, JML has always been a decent-ish counter to Lord Vader throughout the years, but now he has a character that can dispel all debuffs on all allies every other turn and can't be ability blocked. So again, it changes some matches without completely reworking the Jedi Master Luke team, kind of lifting it up to the sense that the same way that Zori, Krex, and Marin did at the very top, where again, leveraging a lot of the information we already know about leaderships like Jedi Knight Revan, Jedi Knight Luke, Jedi Master Luke, and just helping them punch up a little bit higher without making him feel like he's not actually even doing anything on the team. He is doing something. Calus and Beck is also a lot newer, so it's hard to make direct callouts as to what he's doing, but we can already see specifically with his unique ability that he is going to let Qui-Gon Jinn have a savior mechanic that'll let him drop to 1% health and then all the way back up to 50, which in turn will give Jedi Knight Anakin a whole extra bonus turn in there to go and blow something up, which will be very fun. And overall, his kit just looks really cool, and we have very few characters out there that have some type of protection scaling mechanic, so it's nice to see protection getting a little bit more time in the sun, because we all know health is quite popular on a lot of characters. It's nice to see a little bit of a change with the two of them. Also, I don't think this is all we're getting for Jar Jar. I think we might have a shot at him next year, maybe in years to come, but it's nice to at least have Ahmed Best in the game in some form or fashion. Next up is going to be pretty much the Seer team. Seer, Kestis, and Taron Malicos all are new to the game this year, and I like them. They're a good team. Again, this isn't really about power levels. The only thing that I have to say is, again, this is a very new team, so we had to learn a lot of different mechanics in it. She was kind of retrofitted to also work with Fulcrum, so that was very nice. But at the same time, this team is expensive. So not only do we have a Conquest character in here, which I guess that is what it is, we have two new Marquis that also wanted to be at Relics. But if you want to have the team be good in GAC specifically, you need bare minimum 2 Omicrons, and realistically, they could use 4. I realize that I have the 2 on Taron right now and the 1 on Seer, but even the AoE on Taron Malicos isn't that bad. And if you want to use the team in TW to its best effect, you have to add in both Ahsoka Tano Fulcrums as well as Cal Kestis'. Ahsoka Tano Fulcrums is really good, but it doesn't even get to be activated unless you have Cal Kestis', which literally all it does is let Ahsoka use her Omicron without having to be in a solo team. So overall, very good, but really expensive, and that does kind of play into things as far as having to learn new kits, having to apply more things onto them. It doesn't feel quite as good as just building up Captain Rex for Leia and then throwing him on the Phoenix team and then watching characters you've watched do almost nothing for the last 5 years actually do something. But overall, still pretty good. Next up are going to be Tuskens. The Tuskens would probably be higher on this list if the raid didn't have such a short shelf life, but at the end of the day, it did. They're not bad. I would call them situationally good. I think one of the key problems with them not being higher is when they came into the game, the other Tuskens that we already have didn't get any type of rework at all. So really all of the validity of the two characters is within themselves. They're not really leveraging a lot of the stuff from the other team. And while they're not bad, but they're also not quite as good or doing as much as our above teams are with like Marin or Krex or even Calus and Beck. They're just kind of there. Really nice for 3v3 GAC, not terrible in Territory Wars. But overall, I think if we want to see them more, we either need to get real reworks to our other Tuskens or maybe even bring another new Tusken to the game. Although I guess I'm not sure where you would go except for maybe Darth Crate or something like that, although that seems a bit extreme. I would be all for it though. Next up is going to be Trench and Nissa. And these two, I realize not every character can be very powerful and lift up a team to new heights, but these two just kind of felt like they missed the mark overall, and for completely different reasons. Admiral Trench himself is a good character. That is not the problem. His kit is actually pretty cool with all the turn meter. He has a lot of debuffs. His leadership allows the team to do a lot of things and is superior to a lot of other leaderships out there. My big issue with him is the team he is requesting have those characters already have homes, and they're doing just about as good at things as Trench is doing himself, meaning there's almost real no point using him, at least outside of Territory Wars. However, the nice thing about Trench is I think this problem can easily be fixed if they can bring in a General Kalani into the game that within himself already has extortion and tech. That will kind of replace the fact that you don't need to use Watt or Newt in the team and can breathe a little bit more life into him, so that way you can keep your Newt on your Grievous team or wherever he is, and you can keep your Watt in one of the other 4 teams he wants to be on. Still allow Trench to have everything that he wants and how his kit was built, and then you can continue to use him as he should be. But right now that is really difficult and kind of why I think he just missed the mark a little bit. A lot of the other characters that we've looked at, again, going back to the Phoenix and Night Sisters, you're not really stealing any characters from any other team. Trench is kind of doing that. Nissa, and this is where, yeah, the kit just wasn't as good as it should have been. It does do some fun things. She definitely makes the Ewoks better than they were before. She definitely has a place on the team, especially with her defense mechanics. But overall, they needed some type of immunity to keep going forward. And I think when we originally got Rex on the Phoenix team, and he started adding a ton of health, a very nice GAC Omicron to it, gave them immunities, or not immunities, but allowed them to cleanse the ability block and daze off of them immediately. The Ewoks needed something of the sort. They just needed more help than they got. And while, again, her kit isn't terrible, I don't think it's really enough without their Datacron for them to be off the bench for the majority of endgame players. Before that, there might be a argument for them, but I guess that might just be my endgame tunnel vision. Next up is going to be our good friends Dark Trooper, Moff Gideon, as well as Scout Trooper. It's really too early to draw any conclusions here. This character's been in game, at least from when the time this is being recorded, for only about a week now. So not a lot of information out there. We're also right in the middle of Imperial Trooper Datacron, so a lot of the information is off, or at least is not going to be permanent for the time being. We might even get an Imperial Remnant Datacron set later. It actually might already be announced again by the time this video comes out. Who knows? But overall, the team doesn't look that good outside of Territory Wars. But to be real, I don't think it was supposed to be in the first place, considering you can't use most of these other characters without completely cannibalizing Iden and Veers. If the team was very good, then you would be able to do that worry-free, but it doesn't really look like it's quite at that power level yet. But again, very early to say. I don't want to really jump the gun on that one too early. The Mandalorians also just incredibly too early to say the validity of these characters, specifically because we don't even have the team they're supposed to go on. They're supposed to go with Bo-Katan Mandalore. We don't have her, so really, to me, their kits mean nothing right now. I have not learned them at all, just because they don't really seem to be doing anything, but they're not supposed to be doing anything. Their leader isn't even here yet, so that seems really unfair to judge them at all, so we'll just say it's way too early. And last, and I guess kind of least, is going to be Tarful and Saw Gerrera. And again, this is probably endgame tunnel vision, and they're not bad, but they just don't have a place for me in the top 22 teams, at least without Datacrons. The Wookiee Datacrons were very nice for Tarful, and maybe, I mean, really, anytime we see defense again, he might have a slot just because of his interaction with changing defense into offense. But really, outside of that, the team isn't doing a whole lot. And he is probably pretty similar to Trench in the sense that if we do get another Wookiee lifter at some point, maybe Gumby or the Wookiee that was in Bad Batch, that I could see that definitely lifting the team up and giving it more strength. Because really, the problem isn't Tarful and his kid, it's the fact that we just don't have that many great Wookiees right now. Zalbar is obviously amazing, but for the most part, you kind of have to use Clone Wars Chewbacca or like Vet Chewie to get this team off the ground, and that you could do a lot better than Clone Wars Chewbacca as well as Vet Chewie. So some stronger members to come help him out later is very possible. Saw Gerrera, again, just not overall that great. He's been able to use a lot of the leftover rebel fighters. So if you have a very small roster and are lacking a lot of the other rebel leaders, he can be good. Or if you have a huge roster and you have every single thing relics, he can also be good. But kind of where I am in the middle ground of not having everything, but having the top 22 teams in game, he just isn't really used at all. Again, not necessarily a bad kit, just needs more help than he's currently getting. All right, that is our 2023 in review. Let me know what you guys think. Thanks for watching, and as always, stay awesome.